Berserk is one of the most critically acclaimed and popular manga of all time, but of course, coming with that is a lot of negativity as well. Definitely on the lesser side, there's not nearly as much negativity as there is positivity, but at the same time, there's still a good amount of hate towards the series. There's always been hate towards Berserk, but I feel like over time it's gotten more and more popular to just hate on the series for pretty much no reason at all. And that's exactly what I'll be talking about today. I'll be talking about what they say and why they say it. Now, as for the what they say, it can be basically boiled down into one word specifically. And I'm talking about edgy. This is a word that's gotten tossed around plenty of times with a lot of seinen series when it comes to just completely dismissing the series and just saying it's edgy. This was something levied against Tokyo Ghoul. It's definitely a lot more popular to say this about Tokyo Ghoul than anything else, that the series is just edgy, emo, it's not actually deep at all. Basically just ignoring all the things the series does well and just saying it's edgy. That's essentially the same thing that's being said about Berserk, but I feel like there's even less substance to it. But at the same time, there's some sliver of the truth. Because the thing is, Berserk is edgy in a way, especially if you're just looking at the protagonist or even some of the narrative moments within the story. There are moments that are supposed to be super dark, and sometimes they're not executed the best, and that's why people say it's edgy. But when it comes to specifically Guts' character, he is an edgy protagonist. His entire character arc is about becoming a less edgy. He does this twice. At the beginning of the Golden Age, he's edgy, and over time, spending so much time with his comrades, he becomes less jaded over time. The same thing happens with the Conviction arc all the way through the Fantasia arc. He goes through the same character arc where he's losing his edginess, I guess, for lack of a better term. He's just becoming more of a person. So there is some truth to saying that Berserk is edgy, but at the same time, saying it's just edgy is objectively completely wrong. Now, the why is also important, but I also want to just make a few little disclaimers here as well. This is mostly being looked through the lens of social media, probably mostly Twitter. I guess you can say Instagram, YouTube, even as well, but this is mostly Twitter. And the whole reason anybody says anything on Twitter is to get likes. So aside from the dopamine rush that comes to your brain whenever you see a like or a retweet or something like that, why do these people say these things? And it's also super important that they're purposely exaggerating. Most of the people that say these things don't genuinely believe these things themselves. It's just to get attention. But if we ignore attention as being their main goal, or we look at some secondary goal, why they say these things, why they hate on Berserk so much, I feel like the answer is still pretty obvious. They say these things because they've probably just had a bad experience with the Berserk fan base. There's of course the possibility that they're just hating on the series because, they just want to and they think it's funny or something like that. Trolling is another very, common reason to hate on a series. But when it comes to, I guess, some more valid reasons and some things that I've just seen as becoming more of a trend, they hate the series because of the fan base. And with Berserk, the only type of negative fans they really have are elitists, and this can really be placed on any major seinen manga, whether it's Vagabond, Goodnight Pun Pun Vinland Saga, basically any big seinen series has this problem. It's just that Berserk is the biggest seinen manga. Sure, it hasn't sold as much as Vagabond, but I feel like its status, especially right now within social media and stuff like that, it's easily the most popular seinen series right now. And it's also said to be the best manga of all time. I'd say if there was like a popular vote, just enveloping everybody that really has an opinion on what the best manga of all time is, I'd say that the top two for each demographic would be One Piece and Berserk. And that's why these two series have so many elitists, because trust me, One Piece has an insane amount of them as well, way more than Berserk, but at the same time both series still have a ton of elitists. But it's the specific type of seinen elitism, and you can get hyper specific with that and just call it Berserk elitism, that really just makes people hate it. And I do mostly say all of this stuff because not too long ago I had a video titled I Used to Hate Berserk, and this was my exact reasoning behind it. I had a couple of bad experiences with the fan base, and then I entered the Black Swordsman arc, which admittedly not the best arc of all time, not even close. I'd barely consider it a good arc, but at the same time, Most of the reason I hated Berserk wasn't because I didn't like the first arc or anything like that. It's because the fan base was just annoying to me specifically. And I feel like as time has gone on, there's been more and more elitists coming into the group, and that of course leads to more and more hate towards that specific group. That also just as a cause and effect, because they don't like the fan base, they don't like the series. So that's my whole guess to this. So to recap everything, people don't like Berserk because it's edgy, but in reality why they actually hate Berserk isn't because it's super edgy, that's just what they say as kind of like a facade, I guess is the best term I can think of off the top of my head. Why they really hate Berserk is because they don't like the fan base. Now this is really just addressing the haters. There's plenty of things you can criticize about Berserk and it'd be completely valid. But like I said, this is mostly looking through the lens of Twitter, which there's not a lot of valid criticism ever going on through that app. So this was really just my attempt to really pinpoint everything. With hate specifically, like I said, this is not an attempt to pinpoint the genuine criticism that can be applied to Berserk. Because trust me, there are plenty of things people can say about Berserk that are negative, but at the same time completely valid.